Everyone, I'm Saeed Gordon with DOF Creations. Joining us today is Henry Martin, CIO for Walton County Schools in North Florida. Today's conversation is going to be a discussion with the CIO. The title today is actually Your CIO is Your Best Friend, How IT Strategies Can Keep Your Name Out of the News. The goal for our conversation today is to continue discussing the topic of collaboration within K-12 cybersecurity and the ways that working together at the highest levels of district leadership can help to foster a better technology approach that can keep your name out of the news, of course, but also to support the overall direction that your district is going as it relates to your technology. And as we've started doing here, I just want to briefly touch on some grant opportunities. I believe we've touched on ESSER previously, which is the Elementary and Secondary School Education Emergency Relief Fund. This funded about $200 billion in funding for K-12. There's still quite a bit available across the country for many school districts. Technology has become a much larger aspect of this funding, but this is available to support school districts across the country and included with technology. Something that's a little bit different is the 21st Century CCLC grant. This is funded directly from the U.S. Department of Education down to the state and local education institutions or agencies. This is something where you'll apply directly to those educational agencies. In Florida, it would be the Florida Department of Education. This is an opportunity to utilize grant funding for educational technology. Some components are similar in regard to cybersecurity and instructional technology, but this one is more geared towards what's going on with technology in your classrooms. So now that we've gotten the grants introduction out of the way, I'm going to introduce the star of the hour here, Mr. Henry Martin. Henry, how are you?
Pretty good, Sid. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I appreciate you joining with us today. I know we have a couple of things that we had already discussed about as far as our topics for today, but I do want this to be kind of free. So if you have certain goals or ideas that you feel are most important here, feel free to bring those out. The audience for this conversation is largely our superintendents, but this will go out to a variety of individuals across district leadership. So with that, do you mind giving a bit of background on yourself, how you made your way into technology and how you made your way into district leadership?
Sure. I've been in education going on 40 years. I initially started out down in South Florida at a district, Palm Beach County, where it was quite large. And then about 10 years ago, moved up to Walton County. When I first started out in technology, I did a lot of different jobs. I was a server administrator, database administrator, and then I eventually got into IT leadership, running the data center in Palm Beach County. And then that's when I transitioned to Walton County as the CIO and have been here ever since. So I've got a lot of experience in technology and with educational technology, which is a lot different than a lot of different aspects of technology throughout other industries. And so it helps me a lot when we're working with kids, trying to teach kids and create that learning environment that's advantageous for everybody working for that goal.
Okay. You were talking about your earlier experiences and your kind of your first foray into leadership within education technology. I'm sure a lot has changed since some of those, some of those early times for you, but the pandemic changed a lot for a lot of folks. Can you just briefly touch on what changed for you as a technology leader since the pandemic? What did things look like for you in 2018 and 2019? And then now in 2023, how much different or how similar is it to you, compared to what you saw before?
So 2018, 2019, pretty much we were, like most school districts, we had a very, very small footprint in the virtual environment. We were not a one-to-one district, so everything was done within schools and the school environment. When we had to shut down in 2019, we weren't prepared. There were a lot of things that we weren't ready to do. For example, create virtual learning environments for our classrooms. We actually went and made school classes through Teams. so that the teachers could not only use the teams to actually teach the students that were in class, but also the students that were doing it virtually. That was a new experience for us. It took a little while to get it figured out, but we did. So that was something that was a challenge. The other thing that we have in Walton County was that we had a lot of our students in rural areas that do not have internet connectivity. So we actually had to produce paperwork basically to give to them to be able to do their lessons and things of that nature throughout the end of that year, 2019. So it was a huge challenge for technology. And so we battled through that. I will have to say that we were only off for a couple weeks when it first shut down. And then we came back and finished out the rest of the year. We did our basically normal summer school where we have reading camps and things of that nature. And we opened up a week later than we normally do. Mm-hmm. So pretty much we stayed open. Where a lot of school districts were shut down for quite a while. And that now we've seen that was a huge benefit to us. We were at number 7 in the state of Florida at the time. And after this and the year after that, when the grades came out, we actually went up to number 3 in student growth, student achievement, and the GPA as far as graduation. And we actually realized that the more students that we kept in the classroom, the better it was for them overall. Their learning increased, they were kept into a routine, and things went really well. You know, for instance, the students that were not in school, there were some struggles. And it was very difficult for some students that were disciplined to be able to sit in front of that computer every day and be able to try and learn in that type of environment. So it was a challenge in one way, and another way, because of the leadership of the superintendent, he was adamant that we do stay open as much as possible. We kept all our safety requirements in place, made sure things were cleaned, computers were wiped down every day. We went through all those as far as the busing, the entire gamut. But we were really adamant that we want to keep the students in the classroom as much as possible to be able to help their student growth. And we didn't want them to be hindered in the next year if possible, if we could keep them in that learning environment. And it seemed to be successful, and we are pretty happy with the results that we come up with that because of that.
That's phenomenal. I did have a question, since a lot of the folks that will be listening to this are superintendents, and you just mentioned the leadership from your superintendent. What are some of the things that your superintendent did to build trust and a better partnership between the two of you? As things change and evolve, the way technology leaders have to try to convey some challenging topics or dangerous things that are going on within the technology world to, folks that may be outside of IT, that can be challenging for some folks. What has your superintendent done to build that relationship with you and to help you to lead in the way you want to?
So our superintendent has a vision, and he's very adamant about this, is that he's all about the student and giving them the opportunity to learn. And so what he does in his cabinet is that he brings us together. We meet every week and we discuss what we're doing to help a child learn. And that includes from the academic side, the technology side, and every other department that's associated. He has a leadership team that he trusts, and the thing is, he lets us do our job, what we need to do, but we all understand with the same vision that he has, is that we want to create, as far as technology, a learning environment that supports the classroom. No matter what we do with technology, we want to make sure our main goal is, how are we given the tools that teachers need for their learning experience, and the students for their learning experience inside in the teaching aspect. And so by doing that and working towards a single goal, it helps you unite every all of our departments so that we're not siloed and that we all have that same goal and vision coming from the superintendent. I think working with the superintendent over several years since 2016, we've had that relationship now, and that he understands not so much every aspect of technology, but he understands that I have the same vision and desire that he does to make sure that we create the best learning environment. So because of that relationship, we are able to get things done. We are able to go out and support his vision through technology. And with that relationship, and like I say, it's not just me, it's everyone on the cabinet level. We all do the exact same thing. And I think that's what makes it advantageous for us moving forward in the direction that we're at right now.
Okay. Kind of building off of that, you talk about that relationship you have with your superintendent. We've seen a lot of IT directors, across the country. We're a part of different associations and organizations. We speak to different IT leaders. It's not uncommon for IT leaders to avoid a particular technology project, particularly something related to policies and initiatives internally. They'll avoid them because of concern of backlash, or maybe the challenge that comes with pushing a new policy internally. What's that process been like for you when you have to put out various security requirements, whether that's multi-factor or something like that? How have you handled that challenge or the task of bringing technological change to folks that maybe don't want it or don't want it yet?
No, that's a great question. When I first started bringing out things like multi-factor and cybersecurity requirements and things of that nature, I think we all have to understand that this is not a technology issue. This is a district issue. So when I present it to the superintendent, I make it sound this way, is that, I want to implement multi-factor authentication. And it's because of, number one, it's going to help us be safe so that we don't get compromised. And number two, nowadays with the insurance requirements, this is a mandatory thing that we have to implement to be able to be covered by our insurance. So I think we have to look at it more as a district initiative and not just a technology initiative, because I think you can get bogged down in the technical aspects of something when it's much larger than that. If we, for instance, if we lost insurance because we didn't meet all the criteria and we were compromised, it would be a huge deficit in our budget. So, it affects every single part of the education system that we're in. So just to recap that, I just think that if you are going to approach that to a superintendent, you have to be able to have them understand that this is a decision that the school board and the school board leadership need to make to be able to protect their school district, and not just have it revolve just around technology.
Okay. Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. I think that we always talk about technology as kind of being like a light switch. It's you just kind of expect it to be there, flip it on, flip it off, go into your email or whatever it is. But as you're saying, if there's a change or some growth or some innovation required in technology, it's not just going to affect your department. Every department, whether you're a school district or anyone else, every department is connected to IT. So how do we all understand the impact of this particular issue across the district? Kind of following up on that, you mentioned that I believe you said you started with Walton County in 2016, correct?
That's correct. Well, no, I started in 2013.
2013. So you've been with your district for a long time. I'm sure at least everybody within leadership knows you. They've seen your face. But what do you do to build trust over time outside of the superintendent when you're speaking with CFO or other members of district leadership? And specifically, how do you build enough trust to move from being an IT leader to being a district leader that can facilitate change at a higher level?
I think you need to have the perspective of seeing what the big picture is in your district. So, for example, if I want to move forward with the technology, and I believe it's the right technology, but if I can oversee the overall district vision and budgetary measures, it might not fit into that district initiative that superintendent has. So I have to go back and look at that, say, is this something that, excuse me, that the district wants, or is this something more just as a technology need? So I have to weigh out, making sure that I'm following the district initiative and district visions and goals, and make sure that I'm staying in line with that and not necessarily focusing 100% on technology. And I think when all departments and all cabinet level do that, it helps to be able to move forward with projects. We collaborate together on projects because we're working towards one goal and one vision. It makes it a lot easier than each department doing their own thing and then trying to get a budget for it when there's not a top-down decision and vision of exactly where we need to be going and what we can use our budgets for at the time.
Okay. So having that, as you said, I think you said big picture, having that big picture view of being able to see where technology fits in with everything going on across the district, not just seeing what you're doing in your department.
Absolutely.
Another question I had is, we've been this series, this is the third of our series that we've done, and a lot of the stuff we've done is focused on collaboration, focused on the different types of cybersecurity initiatives and things like that that might require collaboration. But collaboration is something required across every organization, and as we see with technology in school districts, you have instructional technology, you have IT, or educational technology, you have IT, and then you have everybody else that may need to use technology in different ways. What does collaboration look like for you, and how do you think you've used collaboration to help to push your district forward?
I think nowadays in education, technology, let me back up a little bit. Technology used to be where it was nice if you had computers to do certain things, and if you had certain maybe interactive boards or something like that, or whatever the technology is, it was just a supplement to what the teacher was doing. Nowadays, everything revolves around technology. Everything we do, every application that we use is all web-based. So that means every single student and every single teacher has to go to the web for all the information, all the curriculum, all the videos, everything that we utilize is online. So it's imperative not only that we have computers for students, but also the correct connectivity through wireless, enough bandwidth through our internet, and the security also that will protect the students and the teachers in this type of environment. It's something nowadays that I deal with every single department, every single school, because they're all needing a technology resource, or they want to make sure that they have the technology in place for testing. They want to make sure everything's up, and it's getting to be a very it can be hectic at times because it's so much different, and the way technology has moved forward now, it is a necessity. It's not necessarily a luxury anymore. So, and I think the superintendent realizes that. And so that's why he's given us a lot of leeway as far as improving our environment, making sure we have the right tools to do the job and to be able to support the classrooms in every way possible. It's one of those things that the paradigm obviously has changed, and technology is just a leading force in education nowadays. And I think that's, whether it's a K-12 or higher education, everything is revolving around technology, whether it's the BYOD in the classroom, whether it's interactive panels that we use for teaching, classroom sets of computers for every student. It's all there, and it's just something that has to be maintained on a daily basis to make sure that we can educate students at all times and not have that be a hindrance in the education piece.
You mentioned the leeway your superintendent has given you to address certain things. I guess, do you have an example of a problem or project where the superintendent kind of trusted you and allowed you to kind of take it in the direction you needed to? Because I think that's often a challenge in any organization, is determining kind of what projects to be hands-on with and what projects to be hands-off with.
Yeah, sure. I think there's a couple of factors there. One, the relationship you have with your leadership team or your superintendent. It's very, very important that they understand what your vision and goal is, and that you are lined up with their or the superintendent's goals and vision. And after working with my superintendent for a while, we get to know each other, and that he knows that I am going to do everything I can to put technology in to support the classroom. And if I bring up an initiative like that, we'll discuss it. And like I say, I don't get everything that I asked for, but if I can explain to him how it's going to benefit the classroom, benefit the students, and how we can actually fit into our budget, he's usually pretty good about going along with some of these new technologies. So like you say, relationship is everything. Making sure that you understand the vision of the superintendent and the goals of the district and the school board. And I think once you do that, it helps to be able to work through some things. Like you say, there's some projects that I would like to do that maybe we can't afford them at this time, or maybe there's other initiatives that the superintendent wants to do first. So, that's something we work towards that goal. And, we actually implement what we can, but like you say, we're always going back and focused on the student and the student's learning environment, and making sure that they're supported in every way, as far as giving them a good education, giving them the opportunity that every student and every child in Walton County can have.
Okay. I want to backtrack a little bit. You mentioned sort of the desire for the individual schools to have a resource available to them because of how much technology is just in every classroom and on every campus. I know everybody talks about staffing, but how does collaboration at the highest levels help you to navigate some of those resource demands that you're going to have, whether that's personal, particularly as it relates to personnel, I would guess?
Yeah, one of the things that I think is very important, and as a matter of fact, I'm actually in the process right now of expanding the techs at these school sites.
Mm-hmm.
I had a few meetings with the superintendent, and my superintendent is very data driven. And
Mm-hmm.
so one of the things I usually do is show him the data as far as what other school districts are doing. What is the ratio, for example, between the students and devices? What is the ratio between technicians and the school sites and things like that? And show him where we are, where other districts are, and where we would like to be. And the other thing I always emphasize is that, we have a lot of good technology. But the one thing, for example, what I'm doing right now is I want to be able to support the classroom in the best way possible I can. And to do that, I would like to have a technician at every school site. And by doing that, we can have somebody there every day, all day, just like any other employee of the school, being able to support technology, be there when there's testing issues, be there when we have to refresh computers in the summertime, reimage all the devices, and many, many other technology tasks. So by presenting it that way to the superintendent, I believe we are going to start expanding our techs that go out to the schools, and eventually we will have a tech at every school, because I think he realizes also that even though we have a lot of good technology out there, we need that customer relationship, and we need that support in the classroom at all times. And I think that was the way I actually brought it to the superintendent, and hopefully soon we'll find out his decision on that. But I'm fairly confident that he will move forward with starting a process of increasing the school techs to be able to make sure that we can keep the downtime to a minimum when students are in the classroom.
Okay. And Henry, I did have, I guess, sort of there may be some other things that you want to talk about, and feel free. But one of the last questions I had for you, and I really want to focus on the relationship that you talk about you built with your superintendent. But if you were speaking to a superintendent today who wanted to build a stronger relationship with their CIO, wanted to maybe get a better grasp of what's going on as it relates to technology in their district, what's something that a superintendent could do today to grow their relationship with a CIO? And on the other side, what can a CIO do to help to build that relationship with their superintendent?
So I think the first thing that, from a superintendent's perspective, is to set the expectations for not only technology, but for everybody that is on his cabinet level. I think a superintendent, when he or she sets these expectations so that everybody understands exactly what he wants and what he's asking, you know where you stand, for number one. So when you go back and when you ask for certain things, I think you have to be able to align all of your initiatives and all your projects based on his expectations of you and your department and where the district is going at the time. And I think that that relationship of understanding what the superintendent wants is huge. When you know exactly where he's coming from, or he or she is coming from, you know exactly what their expectations are, and you know exactly where you stand in there. I think it makes it easy to go out and do certain initiatives, because we're all working towards that one goal and that one vision. And like I say, that leadership from the superintendent on down is imperative to create an environment to where everyone's working together towards the same goal. And to me, that is what's made us successful in Walton County, is that we all understand that, and we all have had conversations with the superintendent, and we know what he expects out of us. There's no doubt about it. We know exactly what he wants us to do, how he wants us to work in our position. So we have a very clear understanding from that perspective. From the CIO itself, I believe one of the things that's very important is that you have communication with leadership, whether it's the cabinet, the superintendent, and make them understand exactly what some of these technologies are. I think sometimes technologists seem to glaze over some of these technologies, and when they explain them, and make sure they're relevant to the people in the room. A lot of times I won't go into technology very deep. I make sure that I just explain the benefits of it, or maybe how it's going to enhance the classroom. Any way to be able to show how that the CIO and technology is going to support his vision and goal, and be able to work with him on that. Like you say, it's something that I've heard in the past from other superintendents that they don't understand a lot of times what they're being asked, or the technology that's moving in. And I think it's our part as a CIO. We have to be able to explain why it's beneficial to spend this much on the budget for this application or this process, and how it's going to benefit the overall students and the staff in the long run.
All right. Henry, I appreciate that. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add, but for me, that was phenomenal. I really appreciate that last note you gave.
Sure, absolutely. I don't think there's really anything else. It's just that, I enjoy working here because of that leadership that we have from our superintendent. Mm-hmm. We all know where we're all going and what we're all focused on. And I think that makes our jobs a lot easier, because we don't have to try and figure out what we want to do or how we want to do things. We all are moving in that same direction. And I think once you have that environment, it makes it easier to move forward with projects, initiatives, budgeting, and things of that nature.
Definitely. Well, Henry, I really appreciate your time today. Hopefully we can do this again in the future and tackle some different challenges and new topics. I'm sure you're your day-to-day gives you a lot of new things to learn about and to see. So I'm sure you'll have some new insights for us the next time we speak.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Saeed. And yeah, I do enjoy this. And yeah, I look forward to our next conversation.
Okay, awesome. For anybody else listening, if there are questions that you had for Henry or myself, please feel free to reach out to me, sbgordon@dofcreations.com. If you had a question specifically for Henry, please feel free to reach out and I will forward that to Henry. And we'll make sure that, if there's something unique or specific that you're seeing, we can get a little bit more of that insight there. Henry, do you have any suggestions for superintendents as far as staying aware of what's going on in K-12? Is there any newsletter or affiliation or anything like that you could suggest they reach out to?
As far as technology?
Yeah, and just staying aware of what's going on in technology for K-12. Is there a newsletter or anything like that you use to kind of stay abreast of what's going on?
One of the things that I try to stay up on as far as, and most superintendents do this already, is the legislation that's going on at the state level. Mm-hmm. That is very beneficial, knowing what bills are coming out, how they've been amended, and how that's going to impact each of our departments. That's one thing that's extremely important. As far as Florida, is that we make sure that whatever legislation's out there, we all sit back and talk about it and see how it's going to impact our environment financially and every way else. And then that way we can go that way. I know there's a lot of good conferences out there that CIOs go to. Most of the time, superintendents don't attend those, but it's. I have to say, I'm kind of at a loss as far as how a superintendent would stay up with technology unless they actually have that constant communication with the CIO and ask for these updates. I'm thinking right now is that superintendent could go up and say, okay, tell me the new technologies that are out there. Tell me the technologies that you think that are on the horizon that can affect education. Is this something that's going to work in our environment? Is this something that we can financially afford? So I would take it upon the superintendent to reach out to the CIO and really dive in and ask their opinion on what technology is out there and how it's going to help us succeed. I think that would go a long way.
Well, Henry, that's the answer. That's fantastic. And I appreciate that. And I think on that note, we're going to wrap it up. But Henry, again, I appreciate your time today. And this was really insightful.
Thank you. And I appreciate it.